welcome back to Paddy's Golf Tips. Some readers have asked, or some watchers have asked, how to hit a chip and run. So we're going to cover chip and runs. Very, very similar to most of chipping, okay? So it's the same technique.
The winner of the gold medal and the champion golfer of the year is Padraig Harrington.
You got to lean into your left side. You can never be hanging back on the right side. We have covered this. All your practice swings, your divots must be left of the golf ball, okay? None of this. Never any hang back, never any squeeze on the right side. No weight on this side. That stops the flip. We want to stay left, okay? So that's the technique. If necessary, put a alignment stick behind the ball to stop you flipping it, okay? The key with a chip and run, and we will discuss this after we go through the technique, is actually choosing the right club for the shot. So we'll talk about that in a minute. We're going to just talk about the technique first of all. So similar to all chip shots, lean in, make sure your practice swings always are to the left hand side of the ball, grip right down the shaft. It's a lot easier to get a bit of wrist action the lower down you go. Key here is you're not trying to lift the ball in the air. There's no reason. You're playing a chip and run, you're trying to actually keep the ball low. We're not necessarily trying to drive it too low. That's a specialized side of chip and runs. We're trying to hit it low, but neutrally low. You're not trying to help it up. If you want to help it up in the air, just take more loft. This is a 9-iron. So I'm going to lean into it left. I'm going to bump it into this bank and get it to bounce up. Just like so. One bounce up and it's going to run nicely over to that pin. Okay. I'd be very happy with that. So as you can see, trying to hit the ball first, never trying to hit behind the ball, not trying to help the ball in the air. One bounce up this particular one. It was nicely played, but it just a hair short in energy. Okay, so left hand side, stay forward, practice, as I said, with that toe up. You can stay left. Now, what club to hit when? Essentially, because the greens have got quicker, I hit a 9-iron. Let me see, I hit, yeah, a 9-iron. I'd hit a quarter of the way in the air and it will run 3/4. So a pitch and wedge would go a third in the air and run 2/3. This is just a general rule of thumb. Obviously, if I'm going uphill, I'll need more hit on it, or a lower club. You know, I hit my gap wedge then. It's pretty similar to my pitching wedge, I would say. So let's say 2/5 of the way. My sand wedge is going to go about halfway, and my lob wedge, say 2/3 of the way. An 8-iron is probably going to go 1/5 of the way and run the rest. Okay, just as a general rule. You make up your own rules, okay? That would obviously change downhill and change uphill. The key with the thing is picking the spot, okay? So if you have the arc of your chip shot, if you're playing a chip and run, especially if you're going to links golf and you can't put it up a bank, you have to run it up the bank. You never want your chip coming too much down on the arc. You want your chip going, it'll obviously be going down, but you want it driving somewhat. So if we've got an upslope here, you don't want it going in like this, you want it driving in if you're going to get it to bounce up. Much easier to hit chip and runs. And I'd advocate hitting a pitch and run or a bounce up shot when the fairways are wet, because the ball will skid nicely. When they're dry, you're better off chipping it up in the air, going for flop shots, okay? But in general, we're trying to drive the ball into our target area, wherever that's going to be. So where should your target area be? If possible, land the ball on the green, because that gives you the most consistent bounce. So like, don't play a chip and run because you like hitting your 9-iron. If it's easier to land your sand wedge on the green, use your sand wedge, okay? The green gives you the most consistent bounce, so always land on the green if possible. Always try and land at the bottom of a slope. Now, there's a reason for this. So if you're chipping into an upslope, a hollow on a green is a good example. If you try and land it short of that hollow, and you pick the right club to run out the hole, great. But if you hit it too hard, you hit into an upslope, so it will finish in the same place as the ball that landed short of the upslope. So you're getting the advantage of a bigger area to land in. And modern greens, a lot of them have swales. So you have a slope here and a slope here. Well, land it in the middle at the bottom of the slope as well, because if you try and land it in the middle of two slopes, if it lands in the downslope, it kicks forward and goes to the same place, and if it lands in the upslope, it stops quicker and finishes in the same place. So you actually, on a modern green, you just can't get it wrong. If they've built these swales, which a lot of them have, you've got a downslope, you've got a flat area, you've got an upslope, you can't fail, because you've got a huge area that the ball will all finish in the same place from, but you've got to pick the right club. Learning to pick the right club is first of all getting that correct technique, down the shaft, weight in your left hand side. I'm going to go one bounce up, so a bit of a drive there. I got that a little thin, and yet it worked out exactly the same. I was trying to get a little higher up in the face and get more of a kill off the bank. So we'll go again. So, go on. Just short of the slope. But you can see the general idea. Ball forward, coming out nice and low. There we go. Exactly how I wanted to play it. One bounce up in this particular shot. I would probably, if I was in a competition, I would land this on the green. I wouldn't necessarily go for the bounce up in this particular way, but we are showing this shot. So you're driving it forward, you're staying your left side, you're never helping it up. This 9-iron will go about a quarter of the way and run 3/4 on modern greens. Okay, and you adjust depending on the slope or the wind. Moisture, it's better to chip and run. It's better to get a nice skiddy bounce if the fairways are wet, if there's just been a shower. So it's better to go one bounce stop on skiddy wet greens. Dry greens, you're better going with the high flop shot. I think there's not much more to it, except always try and land that ball with a bit of momentum into the slope, and always try, if you're chipping onto a green, always try and land it at the bottom of a slope. And that gives you the biggest room for error. Not much more to a chip and run. A bit of practice won't go astray. In modern golf, you very rarely see you having to drop down to a 9 or an 8-iron for chip and runs. Most shots, even a pitch and wedge, will run quite a long way with the speed of the modern greens. So, but sometimes when you're going up banks, you're going to have to drive it. A little giddy that time. You can see the weight is all left. Down the shaft definitely helps. So I'm gripping where I'm actually touching the bottom of the grip. There's no more to chip and runs. It's about driving it into the slope and picking the right club, and then picking the right landing area, and all of that is done from experience. It's the same chip as anything else. Get your weight forward and make sure you're getting that nice clean contact.